Hello, glad to see you on my channel. I really value it. And today I want to share with you a wonderful story. It's a dramatic story that will come as a total shock to everybody. It is a really amazing story. So enjoy watching it. John, I'm sorry. I come to you with a request. Came to the director of a large firm, one of the employees, who was also a good friend. Speak, I'm listening to you. Put aside the papers of the chief. Listen, take one good woman to work, he asked him. What kind of woman? The principal asked. Jeannie. She used to work for me. She used to help with the household, and now she has nowhere to go, no place to live, no money either. Be a friend. Get her a job, even as a cleaner. It's already a penny, he asked for her. Well, I don't know, John thought, tapping his pen on the table. He didn't usually hire anyone himself. Other people did that and had done for a long time. But now, indeed, they had a vacancy for a cleaning lady. It wasn't Ginny's fault that she was born into a poor family. Maybe when she came into the world, she was doing well, Mom, Dad, Grandma. They lived in a private house. She remembers the hot stove, the smell of pies. Well, then it got worse and worse. And where is my daddy? This girl remembers that she asked her mom every time she saw other children who went out with their fathers or went to some events. Oh, daughter, if I knew, I would answer that question for you, always sighed Mom. From the time Ginny could remember herself, it had been just the three of them, her mom, and her grandmother. Mommy was getting on in age, and Grandma was even older. Mommy, do I have to go to this kindergarten? The girl asked in the evening when they picked her up from there. Little girl, how come I go to work every day and you go to kindergarten just like that? From childhood you get accustomed to discipline, the woman explained to her. Memories spent with her mother. The girl kept very carefully. They read fairy tales with her, sometimes composing them themselves. Grandmother was doing something in the kitchen, but the girl saw that she was almost unable to stand on her feet. When the girl went to school, she already knew and could do a lot, because her mother taught her this, although she herself was without any education. But by books she taught her girl to read, write, count. You know, as I'm interested in school, the girl sat down to her mother when she came from there. Tell me what you do there, the woman asked her. In fact, by this time she was already very ill. The doctors predicted that she would live a year at the most, so she gave all her free time to her daughter. But it is not known what, willpower or the support of her daughter, or maybe the unwillingness to leave an old sick mother and a small child alone. The woman lasted almost 4 years. Grandma, what about Mommy? Why doesn't she get up? Ginny came to the woman's bedside one morning. Baby, she must be asleep. Let her rest. Breathed very heavily. Grandmother. I don't think she's sleeping anymore, cried Ginny. She tried to hold back her tears, but she couldn't. What are you talking about? Granny got out of bed. She grunted. She moved slowly through the house, but she reached the room where her daughter was lying. Aubrey. She pushed her, but the woman was no longer alive. What, Grandma? What? Ginny ran up and put her arms around her. My dear, your mom is gone. She has left us for heaven, and now she will watch and help us from there, cried the old woman. How come? Why did she leave me? Doesn't she love me? Ginny started to cry. My little one, all people die. Some sooner, some later. Grandma cried too. But she had shed so many tears in her life, they were already meager now. And then there was a funeral, at which Ginny saw a lot of strangers. She did not understand what was happening. She felt so sorry for her mother that she cried all the time. And then the girl remembers that 2 strange women came to their house. They knocked on the door, since the grandmother could not move around the house normally. Ginny opened them herself. Hi, are you Ginny? Asked one of them. Yes, and who are you? Asked the girl in response. And we are kind aunts who are about to take you away to a place where you will be very well, they said. Grandmother, some 2 aunts have come for me, and they want to take me away, began to shout Ginny. Grandmother got out of bed again, but she was no longer strong enough to get up. She was breathing very hard, coughing. It was obvious that she was having a hard time. Hello, then the women themselves went to her room. Where are you taking her? The woman looked at them. We can't leave her with you because you are not able to take care of a small child, one of the women said. I realize it myself, Jeannie. Come here. The grandmother held out her hands. The girl ran up to her. Why should I go with them? I want to stay with you. I can do everything myself. Look, I put the kettle on the stove. I made tea. I can even make my own cakes, the girl cried. She did not want to leave this house. My little girl, tomorrow morning you'll get up and I'll be gone. And what will you do then? Please don't. I don't want to, she shouted as the women took her by the arms and dragged her almost by force to the exit. Wait, the grandmother coughed. The custodial staff let go of the girl's hands and he rushed back to the older woman. Jeannie, I think I have not long left. She kissed her on both cheeks, stroked her hair, cried, and then searched somewhere under the mattress and pulled out some string. What is it, grandmother? The girl looked at it very carefully. This is your mother's locket. Carry it always with you. Perhaps someday it will bring you luck. She put this pendant around her neck and kissed her. After that, she lay down exhaustedly on her pillow. That's it, Ginny. Come with us. We won't do you any harm. There you will be fed, drunk. There are good guys there. You will play and be friends with them, the women said. But the girl knew that was not true. When Ginny arrived at the unfamiliar institution, she decided that she would not be afraid of anyone. She is strong and will do everything. Hi. She walked into the room where there were several other girls. Oh, hi. What do you have there? One of the girls immediately snatched the locket from her neck. Quickly give it back. Ginny ran after her. Catch up, don't catch up, she teased her by waving that very locket. Ginny ran after her as hard as she could. She caught up, but as she did so, the girl stopped and Ginny crashed into her and she fell, breaking her nose. What are you doing? The girl got up. You shouldn't take other people's stuff, Ginny told her. Fuck you, she told her. They both went back to the room. The girl took her bed, and for the first 6 months, they did everything they could to her. And water poured into the bed to make fun of her for shitting her pants. They put buttons on the chairs and threw glass in her shoes, but the girl did not complain to anyone. She tolerated everything, because she did not want to be thought of as something different. 5 years dragged on for a very long time, and here Ginny graduated from school and entered the sewing school, which was in the same city. According to the law, orphanage children should be given apartments. But the local authorities said that there were no apartments available, so Ginny was given a room in the dormitory. She was happy about that. So Ginny, how are your studies? Sometimes she met social workers on the street. Everything was fine, was always the same answer. Of course, when Ginny was little, this was not what she had dreamed of. But now she had nothing, so she took what life gave her. After graduating from school, she was assigned to the local garment factory. Thank you. She took the direction and went there. The girl did not even think of settling somewhere else. Perhaps she had some preferences, but maybe she just did not want anything. So, tell us, where did you come from? The women who had already worked there for many years asked her. I graduated from the local sewing school and they sent me to work here, Jeannie said naively. Good. I hope we'll work together, said the one sitting next to her at the table. And from that moment on, Ginny did nothing but stitch on her typewriter. But she didn't have to work there for very long because soon the sewing shop was disbanded. No one needed it anymore, and all the women workers were made redundant. What am I going to do now? Jeannie was in the kitchen of the dormitory. What to do, look for a job, her roommate advised her. She'd been in the same position once. Where will I find a job? Ginny lamented. I have no education except for sewing, and I can't do anything. So stop moaning. Go to this address. The woman told her that she needed a janitor. Ginny was glad of that too. She took the address, went outside, and went where she was directed. I'll tell you right away. The pay is small. The woman met her there. She showed her the back room where all the tools and work clothes were. I don't need much, just enough to buy bread and pay the rent, Ginny said modestly. Well, it will certainly be enough for that. The main thing is to work well. The woman blessed her. And from the next day, Ginny began her work. She swept the yard, removed various papers. Somewhere cut the grass, bushes. But this was not the most important thing for the residents of the house. With all of them, Ginny socialized very well. She would say hello to everyone, wish them good morning or evening. And one day, when she was about to go home, she noticed that there was something wrong near the entrance. She quickly closed her room and headed over to where something was going on. Behind a bench, either two dogs or cats, something was moving. Ginny couldn't figure out what. And when she approached, it appeared that there was a man standing there on all fours. What's the matter? She bent over the man. Oh, Ginny, I don't know. I felt bad. I wanted to sit down on the bench, but I couldn't. He told her, and his head was down. Now, Ginny ran into the entryway to call an ambulance. She did it quickly. The car came, and Jack was taken then to the hospital. But it wasn't for long. A few days later he came back. Ginny, hello. He came out of the driveway, saw her sweeping the yard, and came over. Jack, are you all right? She was happy when she saw him. Yes, I'm fine, and you? He looked at her clothes, at the broom. What could happen to me? I'm just breathing fresh air, sweeping the yard, she said. Jeannie, you know what? I want to offer you a job, Jack said. What kind of job? She didn't understand. My wife died a long time ago. There is a daughter, but she is grown up, lives in another place. Do you want to work in my house to help with the household? I won't hurt your wages, he offered her. Of course I'll help you. I'll even help you for free, Ginny agreed with him. No, I don't want free help. You're quitting here and you'll work only for me, he told her. Okay, I agree, she quickly agreed. Ginny wasn't lazy. She did all the tasks that were needed. Cleaning around the house, washing dishes, dusting even those antique figurines that had been in the wall for years. She took everything out, rinsed and wiped. Oh, Ginny, what a good girl you are. He couldn't get enough of how clean and fresh his house was now, Jack. He was telling John all this now, interceding for Jeannie. So I don't get it. If she was working for you, what happened? He asked him. What? What? My daughter separated from her husband. They had a fight. She packed her things and moved in with me. Well, naturally, seeing a young, not very well-dressed woman in the house while I wasn't home, kicked her out the door. And when I came back, Jeannie was gone. And the next morning I saw that she was in our yard again, asking for a job as a janitor, but the vacancy was gone. So I came to you to hire her as a janitor. Basically, it's my fault. If she'd been working in our yard now, she'd have been working. But I had to get her to quit, Jack lamented. You've given me a hard time, Jack. He emphasized his name with a loud thud. You're not hiring her as an accountant or a deputy. You're hiring her as a cleaner, so take her on a trial basis. If she fails, we'll tell her about it, and that's it. She's good and kind. The comrade continued to ask. Okay, you've got it. Bring your guinea here, said the headmaster. Thank you, nice man. Thanked him, and before he could change his mind, Jack left his office and rushed to his house to meet Ginny in the yard. John himself had his own story to tell, and perhaps that was why he now felt sorry for this girl his good friend had spoken of. Once upon a time, little John had gone to school. He wore an old uniform with worn knees and elbows, but the boy didn't realize it at the time. John, God forbid you do something at school. You'll be standing in the corner at home all night. His strict mother threatened him with her finger. I won't do anything. I'll study for 4s and 5s, and then I'll become big. Then I'll be the director of the factory, he told her then. Oh, what can I take from you? His mother waved her hand at him. But John really, from the very first school session, began to learn. He wanted to have only A's. The boy really believed that if he studied well, he would do well in life. But when he was already in the 5th grade and thought something, he realized a lot. Mom, why are we poor? He asked her at home. Well, we're not poor, we're just an average family, the woman told him. Average. I've been wearing this uniform for 3 years. He pointed to his pants, which were obviously hemmed and then unfolded. Why spend money on a uniform when you can buy one and wear it? You don't go out, you don't go anywhere, only to school, his mother explained to him. In fact, they really did not have much. Their parents saved on everything. So sometimes they could afford to take their son somewhere or buy him something. When the boy was in 9th grade, he realized that he needed to do something himself. He began to barter different things from classmates, from some acquaintances. Money started to appear, but not so big, just to buy something small. John, come here. It's a day he'll never forget. His father had been sent on a business trip, and he had brought him some sneakers. The kid looked at those shoes and he couldn't believe it. Dad, where did you get them? Or rather, where did you get the money for them? I sold my skis, answered his father. In fact, the boy later learned that his father sold a collection of ancient books to get money to buy him sneakers. After school, John studied at the technical college. That's where he had a lot of friends and then memories. Although the guy did not have a financial component, but he had charisma and brains. When he entered the dormitory, he knew a lot, knew how to do different things, told guys and girls. Once, when they were in the first year on New Year's holidays, the guys went to the square of the technical school, near the Christmas tree. John saw a girl there, and he was so attracted to her that he decided to meet her. Do you guys know who she is? When school started, John saw her in the cafeteria. Come on, she's a 4th year. They laughed at him. So what? What difference does it make who's in what year? He didn't understand. So, she's a few years older than you? They told him. I don't care. He didn't understand that, as long as I liked her. Okay, this is Julianne, the daughter of the local tycoon, one of the students answered John. Who's a real estate mogul? The kid didn't get it. You know, the biggest building in this town? He asked him then. Yes, is it that factory? After a short thought, he asked, That's right, that factory. So that's its owner, the guy said. Wow. Why is she studying here, in a technical school, and not in some institute? John was surprised. No one knows. Either her parents decided to punish her that way, or she decided to punish her parents that way. His friends answered him. The next day, he went to the technical school and took with him a pack of gum, which he still had from a long time ago, but he kept it until better times. Julianne, hi. He approached her in the hallway at recess. She turned, looked at him, and walked on. Why are you leaving? Let's get acquainted. He followed her. You know what my name is and what yours is. I'm not interested in that at all, she told him then. My name is John, he shouted back at her. Adieu, John. She walked on, but John wasn't the type to give up at the first minute. Today he left her behind, came to the dormitory, and spent the whole evening writing something in his notebook. What are you writing? His friends who live with him didn't understand. You wouldn't understand, he told them. Actually, John was writing poetry. He had once been good at it as a child, and now he decided to remember his talent. When everyone in the room was asleep, he had everything ready. The boy sealed the sheet in an envelope, signed it to Juliana from John. And when he was in tech school the next day, he ran up to her again. Julianne, hello. He said hello to her again. She only curled her lips and looked away. At that time, he discreetly slipped this envelope into her bag. When she got home, she saw some paper in her bag, took it out, saw the inscription, who the message was from, and smiled. At first she wanted to tear it up and throw it away, but then she decided to read it. As she finished the poem, tears welled up in her eyes. John wrote about unrequited love, about how he saw her for the first time and fell in love immediately. That she was so unapproachable, but he'd be smitten and she'd become his wife. The next day there was a party at the technical school, followed by a dance. John ironed his costume and came. All handsome, but Julianne wasn't there. He was very upset about it, waited a little longer in case she came, but when she didn't show up, he gave up and went back to the dorm. No sooner had he left the building than he heard his name. "John," he turned around. Julianne was standing behind the bushes. "What are you doing here? Why aren't you coming in?" "They're all the guys at the dance," he asked her. "Come here," she called out to him. He walked over and looked into her beautiful eyes. "What did you want?" His knees were shaking. His tongue was slurring. He didn't know how to control himself. "Listen, there are so many girls there, my friends. I don't want to be with you in front of them. Let's go for a walk," she called him. John was very hurt that Julianne didn't want to be seen with him in public, but he couldn't pass up the chance to go out with her. They walked into some courtyard and sat there at a table. The guy was still shaking. "Why are you shaking so much?" she asked him. "I don't know, I see you, and I start shaking. I wrote you everything in the poem." After these words, somehow it became easier. "Of course, I am pleased with your advances, but you realize that you are a juvenile," she said to him. "What difference does it make? A woman can be younger than a man, but a man can't be younger, right? And the age difference between us is small." He started giving her different examples. "Okay, I agree to go out with you, to get to know you a little. But if something would not be my way, then we immediately break up." What was with the man? No one can understand. Inside John's heart was beating so that probably heard half the dorm. "Why are you so happy?" his friends asked him. "No reason," he answered them, though he really wanted to tell them that he was out with Julianne, who he liked so much. From that day on, the boy and the girl began to meet every evening and secretly go to some yard, sit on benches. A couple of times they even went to the movies, and once to a dance. When Juliana finished her education and had a graduation party, they didn't go there but went to her house. "Who's that?" Dad asked from the door. Maybe he had just gotten home from work or something. He was wearing a strict suit. "Mom, Dad, meet John. This is John, my young man." Julianne told them then. "What?" They looked at the guy who, first of all, was younger, and secondly, was standing in some crumpled pants and an obscure shirt. "What don't you like? Weren't you, Daddy, always like this?" Immediately became the owner of the company. The daughter was indignant. Okay, friends did not argue mother and father, because they knew that the daughter cannot change her mind. But she had already finished her education, and he still had a long time to study. During this time, a lot could change. With each month and year, the relationship between John and Juliana only grew stronger. And when the young man finished his studies, Julianne advised him to go to get a job at his father's firm. "Come on, he'd never hire me," John told her. "Look, I know better. You're smart, intelligent, grasping. You'll do well. You just try. It's worth a try." She persuaded him. By this time, the girl herself was still not working anywhere. "Hello." The young man came to his girlfriend's father. "Why did you come here?" He looked at him haughtily. "I want to get a job with you." John did not say that he was sent here by Julianne or advised or something else. "Ha ha ha. And you think I'm going to hire you as what? Deputy? What do you want to be? After all, you're supposedly my daughter's future husband." He spoke to him very rudely. "Why? Take me a simple specialist. I am ready to go to the lowest position you have and prove that I am not so bad. Just because I was born into a poor family doesn't mean I don't have abilities and I won't be able to do something," reasoned John out loud. "Okay," said the man then. He realized that if he turned the boy down now, his daughter might resent him. So he ordered that he be taken on as a technician. The guy didn't mind. He wanted to work and could do it. He was never shy about anything. John started working, and after a few months, Julianne's father saw that the young man is smart. He brings some new ideas. He wants and knows how to work. Then he promoted him to a specialist in the sales department. He worked there for several years, and sales reached a new level. I couldn't be happier. "John, come into my office," the director called him. "Yes, Oliver, I'm listening to you," came to him. "I don't know what kind of suitor you are for my daughter, but I can see how you work. I'm appointing you head of sales. I hope everything goes well." At this point, John realized that he had gained the trust of his, as he hoped, future father. In the evening, he came to visit them. By this point, they had been living with Julianne for years, but his parents were still against it. "Oliver, Ginny, I want to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage," he said, and got down on one knee in front of the girl. She cried then and looked at her mom. "And why are you looking at me? Make your own decision." Julianne then turned her gaze to her father, and he only gave her a thumbs up, thus approving of their union. Finally, they could get married. By this time, John was earning enough to feed his family. John and Julianne loved each other very much. They could not imagine how they would live separately. Many years passed, but they could not have children. It was very upset both parents, but no one could do anything. When 20 years passed, John was climbing higher and higher up the ladder, and it was not the merits of his father-in-law, but his own. One day, his boss called him back into his office. "John, we've been living together for a long time. You're my family. But that's not the only reason why I want to offer you something," Oliver told him. "And what is it you want to offer me?" John looked at him surprised. "I'm already so tired that I want to hand over all the powers to you. I can see that you can handle all of this. So from today, I am the owner of the company, and you are its director," Oliver told him, and shook his hand. There was so much trust in that handshake that John couldn't let him down. And now that John had been sitting as director for many years, he was asked to take on the position of a cleaning lady just like he used to be. The man couldn't refuse. He just wanted to know more about her, who she was, why she put her hands down, and didn't try any further. For that, he summoned her to his office. "Hello." She seemed to be young, but because of her appearance, she seemed to be a woman. "Come in." John nodded to her. Ginny was sitting there dead or alive. The headmaster himself had called her into his office. She had only worked here for a short time. What could have happened? "It's okay. There's no need to be scared or nervous," he tried to reassure her. He could see she was scared. "Yeah." She didn't look up at him. "So, Ginny, tell me about yourself." He didn't know where to start. "Why do you want to know, and what do you want to know?" She squirmed in her chair. "Well, why I know something about all the employees, about their families, a little about their personal lives." He stood up and began to walk around the office. "I thought Jack had told you everything since you hired me." She was embarrassed to even raise her eyes at him. "Yes, he gave me a little outline of the situation, but I do not know the details. Why? So young and energetic, and nothing." He didn't understand. It so happened that after the orphanage, she cried and could not say anything more. "I don't mean money or property, education, some ambitions. Where is it all? You need to go forward and achieve your own, no matter what obstacles and difficulties stand in front of you." He took his chair again. "Am I doing something wrong?" She smeared tears on her face. No. On the contrary, everything is fine. That's what surprises me. And imagine, this diligence and stubbornness of yours to direct in the right direction," John reasoned. "Can you change anything?" She looked at him and couldn't believe it herself. "Where do you live now?" he asked Ginny bluntly. "In the dormitory." She wasn't hiding that from anyone. "Is it bad there?" He guessed it himself. "It's fine." She didn't want to complain to anyone. Well, do you want our firm to send you for training? The man himself doesn't know why he was so attracted to this girl. Woman, probably because Jack recommended her. I don't even know. She was twiddling her thumbs in excitement. Okay, tell me what you wanted to be when you were a kid. He immediately remembered himself. His dreams had come true. I don't know. She really might have dreamed of something, but now she's already forgotten. John looked at his subordinate, and he felt so sorry for her. In fact, she had no home, no money, nothing. It was Jack who had brought her here. Yeah, the pay is good here, even for the maintenance staff. All right, stop crying, take a tissue. He handed her a napkin across the table. Thank you. She reached for it. At that moment, something fell out from under her blouse and hit the table. What is it? The man in charge asked. Nothing, just a locket. She tucked it back under her blouse. Show me. He didn't know why he was so interested, but it reminded him of something. Why do you want it? Ginny was scared again in case they thought she had stolen it. My grandmother gave it to me. The girl took the jewelry off her neck. Somewhere I've already... He twirled it in his hands, and suddenly he looked at his wife's picture. She had the same one hanging around her neck. What? Ginny followed his gaze. How can that be? He handed the locket back to the hostess. Well, there is no such thing as identical jewelry. I won't say, but it seems to me that Oliver, my late wife's father, made only 2 of them to order, John said thoughtfully. So maybe this is one of them. Ginny didn't know what to tell her anymore. Exactly, my wife is buried in one of them and the other. He stopped talking again. Where? Now she thought for sure she was going to be blamed. That's what we have to find out, he called and told me to bring him a car. I'll go then. Ginny got up and wanted to leave the office. No, dearie, you're coming with me, since you're the one who started it all. He opened the door for her. As they walked to the car and drove to his father-in-law's house, John thought back to how he and Julianne had lived their life. How much I love you, he admired her. And no matter what anyone said, he loved her for her beauty, her soul, her kindness. If it hadn't been for your persistence, we certainly wouldn't be together. Julianne hugged him. So it was fate. He believed it. Sometimes fate needs to be channeled to make things right, she laughed. At first they lived in the apartment their father had given them. But after John started contributing various new ideas, Oliver gathered everyone at his house around the table. So, children, I insist that you move in with us. It's easier to live together, and no one will miss anyone, he said. I don't know. Julianne looked at her husband uncertainly. I don't mind. We have so much to do with Oliver. I won't even leave the house. He looked at his father-in-law. That's it, then it's decided. Tomorrow you move out, and someone else needs the apartment. We have a lot of people working, the man said. After the move, it became somehow easier, more cordial. Julianne is always with her mother. They cooked together, talked, did something. And John and Oliver could sit in his office until the very morning, arguing and discussing some plan. Once Juliana got up in the morning, she went to the kitchen to make breakfast. But when she got to the stairs, she couldn't help herself and fainted. Daughter, what's wrong? Her mom came running up to her. I don't know. I just felt dizzy, she said. Jesus, sit down, John, she called her son-in-law. When everything was back to normal, the men went to work and the women stayed in the house. John wanted children so badly, and with all his heart he thought that was what was making his wife dizzy. And then she began to feel nauseous, fainting more frequently. Julianne was rushed to the hospital to confirm or deny the pregnancy. But no one expected what the doctor would say. Your wife has a tumor, and I'm afraid it's not benign, said the doctor when he came out after the examination, but it was necessary to wait for the final result. How can that be? She's still so young. Ginny lamented. Even though her daughter was in her 40s, she still hoped she would have a child. After that began treatment, courses of chemotherapy, surgery abroad, but it is right to say that health for any money cannot buy. 4 hard years in hospital, sometimes it seemed that there was a result, but passed some time and again got worse. My love, I'm leaving, but I'll always be with you. Be happy. Don't think of me." She took his hand, but there was no strength in it. "Juliana, my dear, how can it be? Why do you leave me alone?" he cried, and kissed her thin cheeks and hands. "Don't." She put her hand on his head, but couldn't hold it, dropped it on the bed. "Love," he whispered with just his lips. "Ouch!" She wrinkled her nose. That was it. Julianne didn't say another word. Her head just tilted a little to the side. "Jesus, why?" John shouted across the house. "What's wrong?" The mother-in-law came running in, but as soon as she looked into the room, she immediately realized everything. "Julianne." She fell to her knees in front of the bed. There were a lot of people here to say goodbye to Julianne. Her and John's friends were here. Everyone who knew her father, her mother. People were grieving. They could not understand how such a young and beautiful woman could burn so quickly. "John," he heard the driver addressing him. What?" He came out of his reverie. "Here we are," he pointed to the gate of the house. "Yes." He shook his head, then turned his head, saw Ginny, remembered why they were here. But thoughts of his wife could not leave his mind. Now, as they walked through the yard, he saw images of her everywhere. "Okay, first we're going to go to my office and check something out." He raised a finger in the air. When they entered, John quickly logged into his computer and started searching the internet for similar medallions. But nothing like that was there. "You didn't find it." Ginny was standing by the door. "No, but he had to make sure, so as not to look like a fool in his father-in-law's eyes," he muttered. Only then did he invite the young woman to go on ahead. "Mom, Dad, hello? And I'm not alone." John had been calling them that for a long time. It was only at work that he observed the subordination. Who with? A man and a woman sitting in a large room by the fireplace. "Here, let me introduce Jeannie." He stepped back. The girl stood behind him. She squirmed because she was embarrassed and uncomfortable. "Something this picture reminds me of," laughed Ginny. "Yes, exactly déjà vu. Only instead of a daughter, now a son." They were looking at the poor tramp that was standing here in their house. "No, it's not at all what you think," John smiled. "Look." After saying that, he held out his hand to Ginny, and she handed him the locket. "This is the jewelry I ordered for my wife and daughter," Oliver said. He looked at Ginny with surprise. "That's me too, when I saw it." I immediately decided to look into it. John set up chairs for himself and Ginny. "Pass it to me, please," his wife asked. The man handed her the locket in his hands. Yes, indeed, it was the very same pendant. She couldn't believe she was holding it in her hands. "But how?" John looked at her. "Wait, Ginny," hooked it with her fingernail. There was a slight click. The little lid opened, and inside was a picture of Julianne. "What is this?" John was stunned. He took the locket in his hands and couldn't figure out where the tramp had gotten this thing. "But," Oliver looked at his wife, "I made it for you with your picture, and for my daughter with hers." It was confusing, John thought. And Ginny looked at everything going on. She too had never seen that there was a picture inside. "So I don't understand. Did you put your locket on Juliana because I remember that you wore it, and we buried her in it?" The head of the family got up from his seat. "No." Ginny had a look of surprise on her face. "Well, if that's not true, then where's yours? And where did this girl get hers?" The man insisted that everything be explained to him. Now the woman went to her room. On the way, she said something about how she hadn't worn or seen her locket in a long time. "Well, what about you? Can you explain something?" Oliver turned to Ginny, who had been standing there silent the whole time. "Nothing," she shrugged. "I already told you my grandmother gave me this piece of jewelry. I thought it was some kind of talisman." "Why are you shivering?" Looked at his son-in-law and make tea for the guest. Now he got up from his seat and went to fulfill the request. "Tell me, do you remember your parents' grandmother, or anyone else?" Ginny's interrogation began while no one was in the room. "Mom was very good, and when she was gone, I was taken to an orphanage. Then my grandmother died. They loved me very much," sighed the girl. "It is clear So now there is no one to ask how you came into the world and where you got this thing. He played with the medallion in his hand. It turns out so, cried Ginny, because her mental wounds had been dealt with. No need to cry already. The second man today had calmed her down. How can one not cry when fate is so difficult, said Ginny. At that moment, John came back into the room. He brought a tray on which 4 cups with fragrant tea were smoking. He set everything on the table. There were cookies here too. Right behind him came Ginny. She said she had looked through all the boxes, but the locket was nowhere to be found. So, family. Are we going to find out more, or are we going to stop here? Oliver asked everyone present. Maybe Julianne lost or left that pendant and this girl or her mother just picked it up, suggested Ginny. Well, if you don't want to, and I want to get to the truth, what if she had the locket for a reason? John got up from his seat and walked over to Ginny and handed her the jewelry. Thank you, she said quietly. John waited for the girl to finish her tea, and they got back into the car and drove off. Where are you going? He asked Ginny. To work. I've done practically nothing today. She was also honest. Good, let's go together. I have to go there too. I have a lot to do, John agreed with her. They arrived together, got out of the car, entered the building, already at the security post. The laughter started. John looked back at them, but decided to just pass by. I'm going to go do some work, Ginny told him modestly. She stood looking at her feet. Okay, if you think of anything, don't hesitate to come straight to my office. If you get stopped, here's my number. Call me. He handed her a business card. Thank you, for the 1000th time today. She said that word. John went to his office. He was surprised that the girl grew up in a poor family, was unhappy from childhood, then was brought up in an orphanage. But still she did not lose her humanity. Ginny cleaned and washed for the rest of the afternoon. She was going over the memories she had of her family, but nothing new came to mind. Suddenly she stopped. Aunt Leslie, she said out loud. At that moment some staff members were walking past her, and they glanced at the girl. After that, Ginny finished what she had started, and then walked over to John. Where are you going? The girl who was sitting in the waiting room asked her. He told me to come in unimpeded, pointed Ginny to the door of the main one. No shit, sniggered the pretty girl and looked Ginny upside down. Call him, the cleaning lady asked. I'm not going to call him because of the technician. The girl continued to mind her own business. Then I'll call him myself, Ginny said, and pulled a business card out of her pocket. Funny, even I don't have his phone number. She didn't look at her visitor. I do. She dialed the phone number. The receptionist was now looking at Ginny haughtily. She thought she was provoking her on purpose. Hello, John. As you said, they won't let me see you, the girl said, and looked at the girl. No sooner had Ginny disconnected than the headmaster appeared in the reception area. What's going on here? Do you really think if I hadn't told her to come in, Ginny would have come here? He spoke in a raised tone. I understood, almost sliding under the desk of the secretary. Let's go, the boss said, in a different tone to the janitor. That's it. You can't avoid the gossip now, Ginny told him quietly. It's okay. I'm not afraid of it at all, he assured her. You know, now that I was working, I tried to remember something, but nothing came to mind. But there was Aunt Leslie, who lived next door. She might know something. Ginny said very quickly, stammering and blushing. What are we still standing here for? Let's go. He took the girl under his arm, and together they walked out of the study. John, are you still coming today? The girl in the waiting room shouted after him. No, he didn't even turn to her. They left the building, got into the car again, and drove to the address where Ginny used to live. The girl hadn't been here for a very long time. When they pulled up to where their house used to stand, it was no longer in that spot. This is not our house, Ginny looked at it. How is it not yours, and where is yours? He stared at her. John, I don't know. Torn down, I guess. Ginny wasn't sure of anything. We'll figure it out, he told her, and ran up the driveway. On the intercom, he dialed the apartment at random. The woman, after some bickering, opened it for him. They went in and knocked on the very apartment they had dialed into the intercom. Who? John heard the same question she'd asked him when he dialed the numbers. I was just calling you to open the door for me, the man told her. He was already nervous. Hello? She opened it for him. You will excuse us, of course, but we would like to know how long ago this house was built. He quickly asked the question. Oh, you know, about 10 years ago, maybe more, thought the woman. Can I ask you another question? And the house that used to stand here? Do you know where its tenants were moved to? He hoped that now she would tell them the address. Yes, of course. They all moved to the houses they built near the train station. She said as if she knew that for a fact. Ginny smiled. Something stirred in her chest, her excitement even greater than before. They were back in the car, driving to the address the woman had given them, both of them so enthusiastic that they hadn't even thought about how they were going to find the right person. And now, they're standing in the driveway again. So, John turned to Jeannie. What? She turned to him. What's your Aunt Leslie's last name? How are we going to find her in this building, calling every apartment? He looked at the windows of the three-building building. I don't know what to do. Ginny regretted wearing the locket to work, and she would have kept it at home, but no one would have had any questions. She would be in the office now, scrubbing floors and not going anywhere with anyone. Okay, come on. If that Aunt Leslie was friends with your mom, she's not that young. The neighbors are probably the same age and everyone knows her. He stepped confidently toward the entryway. At that moment, an elderly woman came out of it. Who are you here to see? She asked them when she saw that the man and the girl wanted to go inside. You know, this is going to sound ridiculous, but we're looking for a certain Aunt Leslie. John told her about Ginny, who lived with her mother and grandmother, and that the one they were looking for was their neighbor. I know her. She lives in the second entrance in apartment 28, she pointed in the direction. Thank you very much. You have no idea how much you helped us. John was ready to kiss her. They quickly found the apartment they wanted and rang the intercom. Leslie didn't want to let them in for a long time because she didn't understand who they were and what they wanted. But eventually John managed to convince her. The apartment was on the 4th floor, which was the last one in the building. They knocked on the door. When the woman opened it for them, they actually saw practically a grandmother in front of them. Aunt Leslie. Hello, I'm Ginny, the one next to the man told her. Ginny. She couldn't believe her eyes, my dear. Why are you so thin? My God, if I saw you in the street, I'd think you were a grown woman. Well, we'll hug later, but now we need to know something. John stopped their kissing. Yes, of course. Leslie led them into the kitchen. She sat them down at the table and poured tea. Then she sat down on a chair. So, John put Ginny's locket in front of him. He sat and twirled it in his hands. Yes, I'm listening. What did you want to know? Can you remember anything about your neighbor, Ginny's mother? About Aubrey? Leslie turned her eyes to the girl. Apparently, yes. John looked at the girl as well. She lived with her mom. Didn't stand out, was always quiet. We were only friends when we were at home, like neighbors. Leslie began to remember. Well, and where she worked or what she did, asked leading questions man. Ginny, don't you remember where your mom worked? The woman was very surprised. I know she was scrubbing floors somewhere, but where? She shrugged. Anna worked at the local maternity hospital, Leslie interjected. That changes things completely. John lit up like a light bulb. He started gathering his things from the table, not forgetting his locket. What happened? Just now the landlady decided to ask. You see, and come with us. I'll tell you everything on the way. John called her with him. Yes, of course, just now. I'll get dressed. Quickly went to Leslie's room. Meanwhile, John and Ginny were already sitting in the car waiting for her. When the woman came out and got into the car, she couldn't catch her breath for a long time at first. But when she calmed down, she gave them the address. And together, they drove off. So what's the story? She reminded John that there was something he wanted to tell her. A good acquaintance of hers had asked to get Ginny a job. From that point on, he told her how and what happened. "Oh, girl, what a difficult fate you have," empathized her former neighbor. "Yes, no one can envy." She lowered her eyelashes. They drove up to the very maternity hospital Leslie was talking about. "I'm sorry. I'll wait for you in the car," the woman asked them. Sure, sit." John and Ginny. They told her to stay here. They themselves ran into the premises. Naturally, they were met, only where there was a food transfer point. "You see, I'm looking for a man," he told the nurse who came out to him there. "But I won't let you inside anyway," she said. "Well, ask her yourself then. 35 years ago, you had a woman working here. Her name was Anna." "I need to know something about her," John said quickly. "Could you wait a bit?" the girl asked him. Sure enough, the girl disappeared out the door. It had only been about 10 minutes, but it seemed like hours to John. He didn't know why he was so anxious, why he was going through all this, but he wanted to get to the end since he had already started. He had been so stubborn since childhood. When the nurse came out, she handed him a piece of paper. "What is this?" The man looked at her. She couldn't have given him Ginny's mother's address. "It's Michael's address. He used to work here as a gynecologist. He's long retired now. He's old, but he worked with her, the woman you're looking for. The staff here has changed a long time ago. Maybe he knows something." It was like she was ashamed of herself for not finding anything for them. "Thank you for this." The man, along with Ginny, got back into the car, and he gave the driver a new address. The man was already chuckling that they were like bloodhounds on the trail today. Once again, they were outside some house. But here they had an easier situation because it was a private house, which was divided into two halves. "Well, do we knock here or here?" John couldn't decide. "Come on, you go this way, I'll go this way," Ginny suggested. "Okay, as you say." John knocked on one gate. Ginny knocked on the other. But to their luck, no one opened the gate. But John was met by a young girl. "Hello." She looked at him surprised. "Who are you here to see?" "I'm looking for Michael." He read his name again on the piece of paper. "Grandpa?" She looked surprised. "Yes, he must be your grandfather. He used to work as a gynecologist at the local maternity hospital," John clarified for her. It was indeed so. The landlady confirmed his words. She let everyone into the house. Leslie, like last time, stayed in the car. John went into the room. There was an elderly man lying in bed. "Michael." He approached him, thinking he was asleep. "Yes," he said without opening his eyes. "Can I talk to you?" The man asked him. "What did you want?" He opened his eyes. "Many years ago, Anna worked in your maternity hospital. She was a cleaner. Can you tell me anything about her?" John rambled on. "No, I don't know anything. Get out of here." Just now the man was lying with his eyes closed and moving. Now he was almost running around the room. Michael got up on the bed, first sat up, then stood up, went to the window, moved away from it, went back to the bed. You could see the man was nervous. "I can see you know something," John told him. "Who are you?" Michael turned to him. "I've come to find out about Anna," he repeated. "I don't know you." John thought the old man was just mocking him. "I don't know you either, but you were the chief gynecologist then. So maybe you can remember something." John was sure that this man knew something. "Okay, that's enough." The girl who met them entered the room. "But I need to know something." John looked at her with a pleading look. "My dad has a disease he sometimes doesn't recognize us either. How will he tell you what happened years ago? Every now and then he has a memory and he starts to tell us something, but no one knows what it is." She took John's hand and started to lead him out of the room. "Wait, but maybe he'll remember something." John wanted to get to the truth today. He won't remember anything. The girl almost pushed the guests out the door, and they returned to the car. "Well?" Ginny asked, who was waiting for him at the door and hadn't heard anything. "Nothing." He was angry. Leslie, who was waiting for them in the car, perked up. "So how's Michael doing?" She was also curious. "He's not doing well, old sclerotic." John was angry. "Why do you say that?" Ginny shouted at him. "Yeah, I'm sorry, it's just that there was a real clue. A real clue. A real clue that would have told us a lot of things, but he's sick and can't remember anything." John was shaking. "I remembered something," Leslie smiled. "What was it?" John turned to her. "Anna had a friend at work who told me about her," the woman said. "Why didn't you say anything before?" The man glared at her. "Well, I'm sorry, she's not young. Her memory's not so good either," the woman told him. "Do you know where she lives?" There was a question immediately. "No, but it can be found in the archives of the maternity hospital," said Leslie. "Well then, let's go back," and they drove back to the maternity hospital where they had just been. It was the same girl meeting John again. She had found the address of the person they were looking for, and as she handed him the slip of paper, she looked at him so much that he was surprised. "I don't think you'll find this woman," she told him. "Why do you think that?" John knew he could do anything. "Look at the year she was born," the girl pointed with her finger. John lowered his eyes, counted in his mind. At this point, she had to be about 85 years old. "Okay, we'll figure it out." He went back to the car and thought to himself that his mother-in-law was now 74 years old, and she still looked very good. Why shouldn't this woman still be in normal condition? But he could not miss the chance, and they drove back to the new address. Here they did not have to look for anything. The house was on the very outskirts of the city, shabby with one window, and the man knocked on it. In the window appeared the face of a woman who did not look 80 years old at all. She waved for him to go inside the gate himself. John waved to those in the car to stay there and went inside. They sat at the table and there was no one else in the house. John wondered very much why this woman was talking to him and who she was. "Where is Maria?" he asked her. "I am Maria," she said. "Are you eating young apples?" He wondered what she looked like. Yes, she had wrinkles on her face, but not to say she was 80+ years old. "It's my genetics," the woman laughed. "My mom died at 98, and in her coffin she looked like a girl," she told him. "So, we're looking for your friend, Anna. Or rather, we're not looking for her. We're looking for information about her." John was talking very fast again. "I know roughly why you came here." Maria took a mug of tea in her hands. "And why is that?" John looked at her. "Anna and I met when she came to work at our maternity hospital. She was a quiet, calm girl, always helped everyone, never refused. Everyone loved her, and I became friends with her." She looked out the window, tears rolling from her eyes. "Why are you crying?" John didn't understand why she was telling him all this. "Pity," was all she said. "Who are you sorry for?" The man didn't understand. "Pity for everyone." She took a sip of tea. "Why?" He couldn't understand. "Why what?" She wiped away her tears. "Why pity?" He wanted to get a normal answer out of her. Sometimes in life it happens that you have to do something bad, and then a lot of people suffer because of it. And you just don't realize at that moment what will happen next, the woman reasoned. "So tell me, what are you pulling what was there?" Dawn finally realized that this was probably the last instance they'd come to. "You wanted to know about Ginny?" She tilted her head to the side. Yes, the man's eyes widened because he was right in his guess. "Now, wait." After saying that, the man ran outside and waved his hand for Ginny to come inside. She quickly did so, and now the three were sitting at the table. "Ginny, hi. Don't you remember me?" "I'm Aunt Maria." She took her hand. "No." She shook her head. "Well, yes, that's right. How can you remember me? I was your guest when you were very young. And after that, all I did was take care of your mom in hospitals because no one else could do it. So, this is Maria. She was friends with your mom. They worked together and now she wants to tell us something, right?" "Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to do anything to anyone now. What's there to hide? But to be honest, I thought I'd get away with this secret," sighed Maria. and sipped her tea again. Well, tell me already. John couldn't wait. Do you know a woman called Julianne? She looked at him. Of course, it's my late wife. But that's her maiden name. We have a different one now. His hands began to shake. So, when Julianne was brought to the maternity hospital, I was working as an orderly. As soon as she said the first words, John jumped up from the table. You must be confused. We didn't have children. My wife was never pregnant. He was red in the face. You could see the excitement was building. No, I'm not confused about anything, she told him. Okay, I'm in complete shock right now. I don't understand anything, and I'm asking to be told everything in order, John said cockily. What to say, Juliana and her mom came to us at night. The girl had contractions. She was immediately taken to the delivery room. There she gave birth. The woman looked surprised at him. Taya... He stepped away from them. John was now counting to himself how old he was when Ginny was born. At some point he stopped, froze, slowly shifted his gaze to Maria. What are you looking at me like that for, remember? She guessed. And what else was there? Who was there? Who brought? Who delivered the baby? He pelted the woman with questions. He leaned over her and stood like that. I don't know anything. I was just a nurse. I brought the ducks and washed the floors everywhere, the woman almost cried. Well, here they are. Who was the gynecologist? John wouldn't leave her alone. Who? He had one for everyone. Michael. She did not hesitate a minute. What a bastard, John thumped the table at the time. I take it you've been to see him too, Maria guessed. I was, but his granddaughter said he was sick. His head was not right. He didn't remember anything. John exhaled heavily and sat down on the chair. Anything is possible. Seen so much in my life. The woman held her head and shook it. Okay, was there no other people besides you on this day at all? John didn't let go of the thin thread that was leading him to an answer. It was all at night. The woman shook her head negatively. I see, when you have money you can do anything, he sighed. That's it. I've told you everything. Maria hurried to kick the guests out of the house. She did not want to rake up the past. No. Ooh, John smiled. What else? She paused. You haven't told us the most important thing? Julianne may have given birth at night? Even if it was secretly, but what does that have to do with Anna? The man stopped talking. Look, are you trying to drive me crazy? It was obvious that the woman did not want to say anything more, and I sat down next to Ginny, who all this time was silent. John. Why would you do that now? Wondered the woman. At that moment, John thought that Julianne's locket might have fallen out of her pocket and the janitor or nurse had picked it up without telling anyone. Just like that, just out of curiosity, he smiled. Okay, the labor was very difficult. You could hear it in screams, she began to tell me. But the baby did come. That was John's main concern right now. Yes, but... She lowered her eyes. What but? The man didn't understand. He was already in anticipation of what he was about to learn. He was born dead or died later, I don't know, Maria said, and thought that now everyone would definitely leave her alone. How's that? Now something went wrong again. Don't you know how dead babies can be born? Trauma, poisoning, something else. Maria looked out the window. It was already dark outside. And then where did you put him? Tears appeared in the man's eyes. Child? Realized the former nurse. Yes, shouted John, because he couldn't stand it any longer. When the doctors told the girl that her baby had died, she called me to her and gave me this locket to put with the girl. She pointed to the jewelry that was in John's hands. Now, what about you? The man didn't understand. Why, I'm just an orderly. They gave me a package. I carried it, and everything started to move. Maria made big eyes at those who were here. I think there's something wrong with this story. Those secretly, those carried it, dead, alive. What's going on? He couldn't understand anything at all. I went to Anna. She was my friend. I showed her everything and told her. She was shocked at what was going on, and if I was afraid, she wasn't. We unwrapped the package and there was a little girl lying there. She was very small, but alive. Now Maria herself was crying. And then what happened? John was in shock. Nothing. The mother and Julianne had already left us. They didn't want anyone to see them. Michael had gone home. It was just the midwife and me and Aubrey. She wasn't looking at them. And the baby. Jeannie spoke up. The baby girl turned out to be a grip on life. She was lying in a little crib. Anna was taking such good care of her, Mary said dotingly. Why didn't you tell anyone about this? John didn't understand at the time. Who was to tell? I told you there was no one at the time. But in the morning, when Michael came to work again, we told him everything, the woman resented. And him. John was pulling the words out of Maria like a pincer. And he, she grinned, must have gotten a lot of money for all this. No, about the baby. The man was sweating. He said that this child died. There are all the relevant documents. She stood up, went to the closet, and pulled out the death certificate. Why do you have it? Ginny wondered, and John was looking at the paper at that moment. Anna had begged for it to be done as if she had given birth. The baby had to go somewhere. We couldn't even officially give it to an orphanage, so everyone agreed. She took the certificate from the man's hands. Why does it say Nellie and her name is Ginny? The questions were endless. That's what Aubrey decided, so they wrote out the birth certificate under a different name, Maria explained. Okay, how did the neighbors not notice? John asked again. What are you bickering? How and how? Silently folded her hands on her chest, woman. It's simple. If even Aunt Leslie didn't tell us anything, then everything was normal, said Ginny. Okay, I'll talk to her some more. He sort of brushed the girl off. He had a bunch of questions of his own. So why Ginny? He fixed his eyes on Maria. How should I know? Maybe I liked the name, or maybe because that was Julianne's mother's name. She shrugged. It's clear we need to go home. We can find out more there. He got up from his chair. We've kept this secret for so many years. Why bother with it now? Maria followed them to the exit. I won't say anything to anyone. I just wanted to find out what's going on. He turned to her. Okay, good luck. She hugged Ginny. Thank you for everything, he thanked the woman again. By the time they got outside, it was already night. I guess I'll go home, Jeannie said. No. John shook his head. Work tomorrow. She knew her boss could exempt her from that. That's okay. We can drive from my place too. We have a big house. There's plenty of room for everyone. He opened the car doors. After that, Leslie was driven home. You still haven't told me anything. She'd already dozed off in the car. Let's meet tomorrow or the day after. It's late today. We'll talk later. Now the man was very calm and thoughtful. Okay, Ginny, don't forget, drop by. She looked at her. It was very uncomfortable for the girl to go to John's house, but he was so insistent that she couldn't refuse. When they were at the house, everyone was already asleep. The man showed her which room she could settle down in. Ginny was glad to be able to get some rest. She went and washed her face, and after that she just went to sleep. In the morning she was woken up by the alarm clock. She washed her face again. She looked at her clothes. She realized that she would have to go in the same ones today. Yes, she didn't have many clothes at home, but she changed them every day. Good morning. She timidly walked out of the room. Come in. Don't be shy, the man called out to her. They were all already gathered around the table. Thank you. She lowered her head and walked over. Ginny, John's mother-in-law, said to her. Yes. She looked up. Come with me, she beckoned her somewhere. Okay. The girl followed her and thought she was going to start reprimanding her about not coming into the house with strange men or something. Look, I've prepared some clothes for you. She pointed to the clothes that were hanging on the shoulders. What for? She was frightened. Look at you, and these are my daughter's clothes. They'll fit you, Ginny was sure. Thank you, but Ginny went to change. Afterward, They went to the table together. Wow, John appreciated that. Don't embarrass me, the girl blushed. She even looked younger in this outfit. Okay, we'll go to work now, and then we'll all meet here. He looked at his mother-in-law. John, she looked up at him. I said everything, the man said in an iron tone. They drove off as they passed through security. Everyone was already looking at them with great curiosity. Ginny went to mind her own business and the supervisor his. Meet me in the reception area in 3 hours, he told her. Understood. Ginny nodded her head. She was doing her usual business when another cleaner approached her. Ginny, let's go outside, she called out to her. I have a lot to do. She didn't feel like talking to anyone. Let's go. The woman took her under her arm. What do you want? She put down everything she had in her hands and followed her. There were already several workers where Ginny was led. Come on, Ginny, tell me, how did you manage to hook up with the chief? They began to ask her in a low voice. You're confused about something. He and I have the same business. Now that everything is cleared up, nothing more will happen. She tried to talk them out of it. What are you telling us? It's the second day you haven't broken up. Where did you get the new clothes? They didn't believe a word she said. Look, I'm going to work. I don't have much time left. She looked at the one who had brought her here. Ah, I see. Left to work like that for cover, laughed one of the girls. What are you? Cried and ran away from them Ginny. She hadn't even thought about it when she was tailing John. Okay, if that's what they thought of her, then what thoughts did the employees have about the boss himself? Ginny decided to talk to him about it today. She hoped that whatever they started figuring out yesterday would be over. Ginny had pretty much done all the work when the time was up. She went to the reception area again. No one had said anything to her there today, but she didn't go into the office. What's not going in? Without raising her eyes, the girl spoke. Don't. Ginny didn't want to talk to her. At that moment, John came out himself. Oh, you're already here. He saw the girl, and they went out again. John, can I talk to you? She was catching up with him. Sure. What do you want? They were already approaching the car. Wait. She stopped him not to get in, because the driver could talk too. What? He didn't understand her gesture. Do you know what they were talking about in the office today? She told him about the gossip that was starting to spread. Does it bother you? He asked. Not really. She was surprised at this reaction of his. Well, much less me. John opened the door for the girl to sit down. They went to the house where Ginny had spent the night tonight. Do you think Ginny will tell you everything? The girl asked. Where would she go, believed the man. They went into the house. They were already waiting for them there. The table was set. Have a seat, Ginny, invited her hostess. Thank you. She was shy again. Everyone bon appetit. They began their meal, a tense silence hanging over the table. Finally, when it was time for tea, John began to speak. I'm listening to you. He looked at the woman. Are you sure? She replied. Absolutely, he nodded. Why bring up the past? She didn't understand. What do you think happened? John asked. Okay, I'll tell you everything. Forgive me both, she cried. Mom, John, and I are probably going to get married. Julianne came running home that day. What? She turned to her daughter and looked at her for a long time. You realize he has nothing. He's a beggar. What can he give you? I have. It's enough for us, and then he'll earn money. The girl didn't despair. What will he earn? Her mother couldn't accept it. Why do you have such an opinion of him? Julianne sat down on a chair and cried. This is not the kind of lot we wished for you. Her mother sat across from her. Why didn't they let you go anywhere then? If you had lived in Moscow now, you would have found a normal man. So no, why should I study? I'll work for my father anyway. She reproached the woman. I see, but my last word, no wedding. The mother stood her ground. I'm expecting a child, Julianne said, when her mother got up and went to do something. Don't you get it? The woman returned to her seat. You haven't heard or don't know what it is. as if the woman was mocking her. "When did you have time? He is a minor who can't do anything and has nothing," resented the mother. "There is no turning back." The girl waved her hands. "There's always a way out," Ginny was sure. No, unbuttoned Julian's cloak. The time limit was already imposing. "Does he know?" Mom approached her daughter. "I wanted to say when the wedding would have been decided." Juliana was so pleased now. She had put her parents on the spot in a way. "Okay, you're going off to your grandmother's house so no one can see or tell." It was obvious that Ginny wasn't kidding. No, Julianne didn't know what she should do now. Eventually, the wife told her husband that her daughter hadn't had a vacation in a while. She needed to go visit her grandmother. The father did not resist, and Juliana went to her grandmother, who was her mom's mom. She lived in the country. They had tried to move her from there many times, but she didn't want to leave the land. "Mom." "Hi." Ginny walked into the house. "Oh, what are the odds? You're always busy," the woman greeted them. "Listen." Her daughter told her everything. "At least she'll stay like this." Her grandmother was against getting rid of the child. And when the mother left, it was incomprehensible. Why hide the girl if the pregnancy was still preserved? But Juliana lived in the village until the birth. Naturally, during this time, she did not meet John. "Come on, let's go." Ginny came into the house. "Where to?" Julianne didn't understand. "Where to? You have a deadline to meet." The woman hurried her. They packed their things, got in the car, drove off. When they were home, the father was not there. The mother gave her daughter a very wide dress. "Why?" Julianne took it in her hands. "Put it on so the father's belly won't notice." Ginny prayed that the labor would start faster, and preferably in the afternoon while Oliver was at work. Oliver came in from work. His daughter was sitting in the kitchen. She looked ridiculous. "What's that look? Did Grandma fatten her up?" laughed the father at his daughter. "Yep." She finished her meal and went to her room. Julianne wondered what her mother would do after she gave birth, but hesitated to ask. In the morning, when her father left, the girl went out to eat breakfast. All day long, she did nothing, suffering from idleness. The hardest thing was this parting with the young man. But the girl believed that now their baby would be born, and everything would be fine. She lay on the bed. It was late, thirsty. Juliana went to the kitchen, and just as she stood up, something so stabbed her lower abdomen that she almost fell down. "Mom!" Julianne yelled. "What?" She came running. "I'm going into labor," kneeling and holding her stomach. "How?" "Because the term is still a few weeks away." The mother took the girl's hand, helped her up. "I don't know. It's not like I have any control over it," Julianne grumbled. Presently, Ginny left the room. Her father was gone. She made a phone call somewhere, and then she threw a coat over her daughter, and they went to the car. They arrived at the hospital late. They were immediately led into the delivery room. Julianne was already screaming. The pain was incredible. But it was the flowers when it started for real. Then the girl thought she would die from it. Not only that labor began early, but also the baby was with an encirclement. "It's not good," the doctor said. "What can be done?" Jeannie was there. "Nothing. It's fate," the doctor said. "If you're lucky, you'll be fine." It was very difficult and painful. They had to make several incisions to make it work. By the end, Julianne was almost unconscious. She didn't remember or understand much. Finally, it was over. "I have to tell you sadly, the baby is dead." The doctor approached Ginny. "Well, good," she said then. It was not for nothing that she had kept her daughter hidden from the gossip. Mother and daughter spent the next day in the hospital. "Where's my baby?" Julianne asked when she regained consciousness. "He's gone," the nurse who cleaned the place told her. "Close the door?" the girl asked. "Okay," did as asked. "Is it true?" Julianne realized that her mother could be setting all this up. Of course, how can you lie about something like that? The nurse recoiled from her. "If it really is true, here, take this, bury it with the child." She handed her the very locket. "It will be done." The woman nodded her head. She left the room and Juliana cried loudly. Her mother came running to the crying. She tried to comfort her little girl. Everything will be all right. You will give birth to many more babies, Jeannie told her. She won't. At this point, the doctor came in to say it would be okay to go home in the morning. What do you mean? She won't. The mother turned to the man. Now he didn't look her in the eye. Mom, she looked at the woman. My darling, she hugged her daughter. Child had to be buried, the orderly was asked to do. Wait, let's have a look at him, the cleaning lady told her. What are you doing? We need to show the doctors. She was scared. Nothing terrible will happen if we take one look, she said. They went into the room, unwrapped the package. There was a little girl lying there. God, such a little girl, why? Bent over her Anna, who cleaned the place. That's it, come on, hurried her Maria, who was a nurse. Wait, she's breathing, her friend told her. No way, she leaned over to the girl. Oh my God, she's alive, Anna screamed. They grabbed the baby and carried her to the doctors, but not for what they wanted to do with her before. Please look, the baby is breathing, the women shouted at each other. Indeed, the little one was alive, but very weak. She was placed in a special room under a lamp. They had to tell the mother the happy news. Where are you going? She's asleep. Ginny sat next to the door. We have very good news. Maria's hands were shaking. What news? The woman got up from her chair. Your baby is alive, whispered the nurse, so as not to jinx it. What do you mean, the doctor said. The mother was stunned. Just a minute ago. Everything was fine. She was thinking where she would send her daughter for rehabilitation. And now? Yes, but she's alive, breathing, Maria rejoiced. Okay, let's go, took Ginny aside the woman. What are you doing? She made big eyes. Here, take this, say that the child died, and give it to the others. She gave the money to the woman. I can't do that. Maria started to resist, but the woman threatened her with dismissal and something else. Now, the gynecologist, the nurse, and the cleaning lady knew about the terrible secret. What to do was unclear. I'll take the baby, Anna said then. Look what she has. Maria pulled a locket out of her pocket. Well, maybe by this thing someone will find her someday. Anna took it and put it in her pocket. And then she was moved to another town for a while. She had a real birth certificate. It turned out that Anna had given birth to this baby herself. No one would ever guess otherwise. Ginny, how could you? Oliver jumped up from his seat and immediately grabbed his heart. Why, I was young and stupid, she cried. Well, why didn't you consult me? He stood, wrinkling his nose and looking for a pill. Or with me. John wanted to cry too, but couldn't. I'm sorry. I didn't know it would be like this. My mother-in-law wiped her tears with a handkerchief. Okay, and then when we got married and everything was going well, why didn't we look for a girl? John asked. Look, maybe it wasn't like that at all, Ginny soothed. How was it? The man and the girl looked at her. Our girl is really dead, and the other one that some beggar gave birth to was going to be slipped to us. She looked at Ginny with a different look than she had this morning. What are you talking about? Oliver finally took the pill. He felt much better now. What I think is what I say. It's hard for me too. Don't you see? Think of all the things I've lived with all my life. She tried to justify herself in various ways. Okay, I have one thing to do. He took Ginny's hand and dragged her towards the exit. Where are we going? He was practically running. Let's go to the clinic. John had it all mapped out in his head. Now they were on their way to get a paternity test. Do you seriously think I'm your daughter? She looked at him. Why not? If all these stories are true, anything is possible. Can you imagine? John was all tense as a spring again. They had come to the clinic, taken all the tests. Now all that was left to do was wait. That's it. I'm going home now, she said afterwards. No, you're not going anywhere, he held her hand. Do you want me to live with your father-in-law and mother-in-law? She stood and smiled. If everything checks out, they'll be your grandparents. He pulled her towards the car. Okay, just until the results are in, she agreed. Every day now, John drove to work with Ginny every day. Everyone was already talking openly about their relationship. "Ginny, when's the wedding?" a co-worker asked her. "Leave everyone alone," she replied, and paid no attention to anyone. "Good, good." She put her hands out in front of her. "And how is he in bed?" Another one came up. "What are you talking about?" Jeannie couldn't understand. "Why are you still working here?" A third one came up. That was it. She went to the supervisor's office. "I want to quit," she told him. "Why?" He was surprised. And then he thought of something else. "'Cause I'm fed up with everyone here. That we have a relationship." She sat down on a chair and started crying. "You can write a statement and don't come again," he told her. "Okay, thank you." She took a sheet and a pen and was about to start writing when she stopped. "What are you doing?" He watched her. "I was thinking, if I leave here, what am I going to do at your house then?" She looked up at John. "Then, I'm letting you go on vacation." He found a way out of it. "Jeannie, come out," Jeannie called her one day. "Yes." "What did you want?" Though she could see that the woman's attitude towards her had changed, she didn't want to badmouth her. "Come on." She led her into the kitchen, sat her down on a chair, poured tea for herself and the girl, and then pulled out a huge photo album. "What's this?" Ginny had never seen one of these before. Now opened the woman the first page. There was a girl who looked a lot like Ginny. If I didn't know any better, I'd say it was me. She looked at the other pictures too. Of course, there's no need for any tests. I can see that you're Ginny's daughter. I just need to be sure if it's Jonah, the woman said curtly. I see the girl didn't ask any more questions. They sat for a long time, looking at the pictures. Ginny told who and what was depicted there. "This is our wedding." She stroked a picture of a young girl and a boy. "You love him, don't you?" Looked that there was warmth in the woman's eyes. "Can you imagine? So many years have passed, and I still remember everything." It seemed that the woman was about to cry. "Let's keep going," Ginny asked as they turned to the next page. "Look, there was John and Julianne's wedding. They were very young, too." "Is that my mom?" pointed Ginny at the girl. "Yes." Now the woman was crying because she missed her Julianne so much. "Beautiful." She stroked the picture. "Yes." Ginny stopped talking. "What's wrong with you?" The girl turned to her. "I'm sorry, baby." The woman hugged her. "It's okay. I was fine too. I lived happily until I was 10. Ginny lowered her eyes. "It's going to be okay now. As long as I'm alive, I won't leave you." They sat like that, hugging each other. In the evening, when John came home, he said he had gotten a call from the clinic. The tests were ready. "Well, shall we take a look?" He shook the envelope. He wanted to open it so badly on the way home, but he waited until he got home. "Now we have to wait for Oliver," Jeannie said. "Okay," the man was already tearing the envelope. "I'm on my way down." He walked down the stairs. When the envelope was opened, John didn't read anything. His eyes immediately dropped to the bottom of the page. The man's face stretched. He couldn't look away. "What is it?" The others couldn't wait. "The fact that I'm her father." He pointed at Ginny. 99 and 9, he cried. "Come on," his father-in-law hugged him. "I can't believe it. I've dreamed of having kids all my life, and here we are." Dreams come true. He couldn't calm down. "It's okay." They set the table for dinner. "John, will you never forgive me?" the mother-in-law asked her son-in-law. "Already forgiven, and to be honest, he was never angry." He came over and hugged her. "What should I do now?" Ginny asked modestly. "Okay, I realize it's unfamiliar, but get used to calling me Dad and their grandparents," John mumbled. "I'll try," smiled Ginny. She didn't know how everything in her life was about to change. "Son, I want you to fire Ginny," said Oliver suddenly. "Suddenly what?" John didn't understand him. "My granddaughter can't work as a janitor," said the grandfather. "Well, I understand you, but she can't do anything else," the man said. "We'll teach her." Oliver was sure of it. "It's understood," they agreed. Doesn't anyone want to ask me? Ginny interjected. Tell her, her father suggested. I don't want to change anything. I'm fine with everything. She stood up and walked around the table, and I don't want to just sit here. I'll help. Okay, it'll be fine, laughed Grandma. The next day, John and Ginny drove to work together again. This was no longer a surprise to anyone, but the gossip still persisted. Dear employees, please gather everyone in the conference room, John said into the loudspeaker. When everyone was gathered there, the person in charge came on stage. He stood at the microphone and waited for everyone to be quiet. Finally, the crowd quieted down. Now he's going to introduce Ginny to us as his wife, they whispered in the back rows. Dear colleagues, the director began, I would like to introduce Ginny to you. At that moment, he extended his hand and called her to him. Well, what did I say? Came a whisper still there. Quiet, you, shushed the woman, everyone. Hello, came the girl on stage. A lot of people know her. She's a very good worker always, and everything is done on time. I think a promotion is waiting for her soon. He put one arm around Ginny's shoulder. Don't. I'm embarrassed, she asked. No, so there won't be any rumors and gossip. I have to announce it to everyone. Everyone in the hall seemed to freeze. Okay, she nodded. Ginny is my daughter, he said each word separately. What? Everyone exhaled. Yes, I only found that out a short while ago, but now I'm going to catch up on what I missed. The man smiled full on. From all sides began to say something. Some congratulated, others said something judgmental. When everyone had already been dismissed, Jack approached John. Congratulations, he shook his hand. Did you think when you didn't want to hire Ginny that she was your daughter? You know, I'll remember you in a good word for a long time to come. John thanked his friend. Sincere congratulations, he hugged Ginny. Thank you, she smiled. Okay, we need to go to your place and gather all the important things there. Spoke out loud what needed to be done today, John said. I'm still uncomfortable, Ginny slouched her gaze. Look, it's uncomfortable to sleep on the ceiling, and now it's okay because of one word from some man. You've endured hardships for so many years. It should be different now. They walked out of the gate and up to the car. John opened the door for Ginny. She got into the car. Still, the girl was uncomfortable with the way things had turned out so far. Take me to Aunt Leslie's, she asked the man. Okay, let's go. Just promise me you'll come home from her. He took her at her word. Yes, I promise I'll come back. She knew the woman didn't know anything after they had parted ways. Ginny arrived at the entranceway that was already familiar to her. She walked in and knocked on the door. Leslie was very happy to see her. She let the girl inside, put the kettle on as usual, took out cups and various treats. I knew you would come today. I made cookies, the woman told her. I couldn't not come. Since we've already done everything together, I should tell you everything, Ginny answered her. And how did your story end? Leslie was interested. You have no idea it turned out that John is my father, said the girl. Wow. Leslie sat down on a chair. She poured tea into cups and pushed one to Ginny. Yeah. We were all in shock. The girl shook her head. What about now? The woman asked her. They call me to live with them, and I'm so uncomfortable that I can't even talk about it, Ginny admitted. Come on, while you have the opportunity, take everything from life, said her former neighbor. I can't do that. Take advantage of people. The girl looked at her surprised. What to use? Once they just threw you out of their lives. And now, when your father wants to help you, you have to agree with him. Leslie realized that except for her, no one else will advise the girl anything. I'll certainly try, she promised, shrugged, and averted her eyes from Ginny. They sat and talked for a long time, and then Ginny's phone rang. It was John. Are you guys still sitting around? He asked her. Why? Is something wrong? She was scared. No, nothing. I just came to pick you up, and I'm standing in the driveway now, he answered his daughter. Okay, I'll be right out. She answered him and started to get ready. Ginny, you come see me again, Leslie hugged her in the hallway. I will, she told her, and walked out of the apartment. What? You didn't believe that I would come to you? Got in the car, girl. Knowing your character, you need to double-check 100 times, John told her. Let's go. She had pretty much resigned herself to the idea that he was going to do everything for her now. At home, Ginny and Oliver were waiting for them. They had set the table again, and now they all sat down to dinner together. Ginny, how happy we are to have you, her grandmother was telling her. Yes. The girl shook her head. Now we need to get you our last name. Grandfather really wanted him to have grandchildren. Yes, paternity is proven, so there should be no difficulties, agreed with him, son-in-law. You've decided everything for me, Ginny smiled and said sadly. Let me take care of you, her father pleaded. In the morning, they went to the beauty parlor, then shopping. When the girl looked at herself in the mirror after all that, she didn't recognize her reflection. Money works magic. She touched her curls. It turns out you are a beauty, stood behind her young father. Thank you, Ginny's cheeks turned red. John, good afternoon. The young man approached him. Eden, hello. They shook hands. Who is this, your new wife? He looked at Ginny. You won't believe it, daughter, laughed the man back. Wow, that's how old you became a father, was Eden genuinely surprised. Okay, look how uncomfortable she is listening to all this. Come on, I better introduce you too. He led him over to his daughter. Ginny, this is my good friend and partner Eden, he introduced the young man. Nice to meet you, he kissed her hand. Really, the girl was not at all comfortable. Will you have lunch with us? John turned to him. With pleasure, he winked at Ginny. Then let's go to the restaurant, John decided. They packed up and went to the closest restaurant that was to the place. The man walked and looked at the young couple. He saw that Eden liked his daughter and thought that if they had a relationship, it would be all right, and he would help them. When they entered the building and sat down at a table, John decided to order himself. He ordered champagne and fruit. This is quite a meal, Eden smiled. What's not to your liking? You can order the rest yourself, John laughed back. When the waiter uncorked the bottle and poured the sparkling wine into glasses, the man proposed a toast. He said he was expecting Eden at his house any time. Ginny blushed at this point. They were on their way home when it was late evening. So, did you like the young man? The father asked his daughter. Did you do it on purpose? She told him. You what? If I did it on purpose, it would definitely not be Eden. The father was sure. Who would it be? She was ashamed, but she asked. I don't know, some Jack. John was laughing now. They got home. Ginny retired to her room. She never even thought that she would soon have a young man, and they would have some sort of relationship. Eden started calling her daily. He was suggesting to meet and also to date at all. Grandma, do you think I should do it or not? She asked Ginny one day. Oh, child, it's up to you to decide. The woman was confused. Well, I like Eden very much, and if you don't mind, he'd come into dinner tonight, Ginny said. I already told you that this young man can come to us any time of the day or night, her father answered her. In the evening, Eden came and they had a very nice dinner. And in the morning, Ginny asked her father to take her to her mother's grave. Of course, how could I deny you that, he told her. Eden said he would go with them. And now they stood in the cemetery, a young woman looking at them from a photograph and smiling. There's Julianne, our daughter, John said, a tear sliding down his cheek.